Do you know what the excrement of slimes is used for? Actually, the excrement of slimes can be made into tempered glass. First, use separation magic to remove the moisture. Then add the excrement back in. After repeating this process several times, the excrement turns into crystal clear tempered glass, which is so hard that it can withstand level 10 impacts. Ryoma is a man blessed by the gods. He lives alone in the deep forest and, out of boredom, started raising 1,000 slimes. When the slimes are hungry, they wake him up. These caterpillars are the slimes' food. Feeding them helps the slimes evolve. After eating the caterpillars, they evolve into sticky slimes that can produce sturdy silk threads from the mucus they refine inside their bodies, which is very helpful for Ryoma when he goes hunting. Acid slimes can use their strong acidic bodily fluids to digest hard substances like bones. Poison slimes, on the other hand, are evolved from those that survived eating strawberries. And clean slimes achieve cleaning effects by eating stains and can even eliminate odors. One day, Ryoma goes into the mountains to look for new slimes as usual, when suddenly he hears a voice. Ryoma looks around and sees 4 people in blue cloaks entering the forest. He carefully considers his options and finds a man with an abdominal injury lying on the ground, apparently the companions of the 4. In a rush, Ryoma comes out to help, but the others are startled and even point a sword at him. Embarrassingly, Ryoma, who hasn't spoken to another person for years and almost forgot how to speak, stammers out that he has medicine. After struggling to express himself, he produces the medicine. Unsure of how to proceed, the others send someone to take the medicine from Ryoma's hands. They open the bottle, pour some on their hand, smell it, and after testing it for poison, administer it to their companion. Then, the kind Ryoma invites them to his house to rest. The nobles tentatively trust him. On the way, these nobles don't understand why Ryoma would be in these deep mountains alone, dressed in hunting clothes. Suddenly, Ryoma stops and says he seems to have caught some prey. The nobles are taken aback when they see a group of green slimes and immediately take a combat stance. Ryoma quickly steps in front of the slimes, and after some explanation, it turns out that these are all slimes raised by Ryoma. Eventually, they reach Ryoma's house, which appears to be just a stone wall. The nobles think they've reached a dead end, but then Ryoma raises his hand, and a magic circle appears on the stone wall, and soon an opening appears. They are amazed that such a young boy can perform such magic. Once inside the room, they find it strange that, while the furniture indeed suggests he lives alone, Ryoma's age does not seem to match his behavior. It's incredible. Ryoma then brings out a small box of healing potions to give them, which the nobles think is very precious, but Ryoma says it's no big deal since he can make more. Everyone is astonished. Ryoma quickly changes the subject as 2 small slimes bring up tea with ice in it, which Ryoma also made using magic. His identity as a big shot is becoming hard to hide. To test Ryoma, they bring out a crystal ball that shows whether one is good or bad, and the level of one's abilities when touched. Ryoma places his hand on it. The crystal does not turn red, but it shows no combat skills either. But his household skills are at level 10, mental endurance at level 9, physical endurance at level 8. They can't imagine what this 11-year-old boy has been through. Some days pass, and the injured noble has recovered, so they prepare to return home. They tell Ryoma that if he needs anything, he can contact them in the city. With that, they turn and head back. It turns out Ryoma isn't actually 11 years old, nor is he from this world. In fact, he died 3 years ago. At that time, he was working for a corrupt company, enduring days of heavy workload, with a boss who constantly made excessive demands and offered no vacations until one day, when he came to his senses, he found himself in a strange place. When he learned of his own death, his reaction was unusually calm, feeling instead that he had been liberated. The 3 beings are so-called gods. He is Gain, the god of creation. She is Lulutia, the goddess of love. He is Kufo, the god of life. Because the world of the gods was running out of magical energy, while Earth's magical energy was unused, they planned to transfer Ryoma and Earth's magical energy to their world. Ryoma would be reborn in the body of an 8-year-old boy, and the 3 gods would grant him all magical attributes. After signing a contract, Ryoma would start his new life. Before leaving, the 3 gods told him to go to the church in town, where, with clerical skills, he could speak with them. Touched by such divine care, Ryoma cried before departing, feeling warmth for the first time. Then Ryoma was transported. As an 8-year-old, he arrived in this other world and was reborn. The gods had prepared a manual related to his new life. He came upon a large tree, stood up, and casually kicked the tree in half, then subdued it with magic. His first slime was a magical history slime. In his previous life, he had no time for hobbies, but in this world, he was keenly interested in researching slimes. 3 years later, he had tamed 1,000 slimes. And how long could Ryoma's comfortable daily life continue? When identical types of slimes merge, they can become a giant slime, then be shrunk back to their original size. This was Ryoma's secret to keeping 1,000 slimes at once. After demonstrating this method, Ryoma found everyone looking at him as if he were a monster. It turns out that no one in this world had ever contracted a giant slime. Ryoma's pioneering feat could now be recorded in history. The Duke's daughter instantly wanted to become his apprentice. Her family had been magicians for generations. She wanted to contract a cleaning slime, a type of slime that could not only wash clothes, but also be used for washing hands and faces, perfect for a cleanliness-loving young lady. But Ryoma was the only one who knew how to contract such slimes, and she hoped Ryoma could teach her. At Eliaria's request, Ryoma hesitated, unable to speak, because contracting a cleaning slime required using one's own bathwater. Eliaria blushed upon hearing this, but for the sake of contracting a cleaning slime, she was determined. She scrubbed hard in the bathtub for a long time, finally managing to contract a cleaning slime with a large bucket of bathwater. Afterward, the Duke invited Ryoma to travel with them. Having been in this other world for 3 years, Ryoma also wanted to see more, so he used his space magic to store all his belongings in a magical box. He might rarely return to this forest in the future. On the road, Ryoma casually mentioned being a full-spectrum mage, leaving the old Duke in awe of how much Ryoma knew. Caught in a heavy rain, they were blocked by a mudslide. Taking a detour would take 3 days, and clearing the mudslide would also take 3 days. Just as the Duke hesitated about what to do, Ryoma revealed another trick. He first put on a raincoat made from slime, then went outside and cast a large barrier to block the falling rain. He then used magic to turn the mudslide directly into stones. After the slimes moved the stones away, not only was the road cleared, but also a large pile of building materials was obtained. This red liquid is from a bloody slime, a type of slime that likes to suck the blood of animals. Ryoma caught a rat and placed it on the ground. The slime pounced on it and started guzzling loudly. After finishing, it even burrowed into the rat's body through the wound. The rat's body writhed and then slowly dried up. Witnessing such a miraculous scene, Ryoma held this slime dearly, and it immediately became his familiar. When Ryoma first came to this other world, the deity had instructed him to visit them when he had time. Thus Ryoma went to the church and used the water crystal on the baptismal stand to communicate with the deity. He first inserted the crystal plate into the slot, then gently caressed the crystal ball. After a burst of light, Ryoma successfully appeared before the deity. The last time he came here was 3 years ago, after he had died on Earth. Ryoma was startled, thinking he had died again. After some explanation, he understood that communicating with the deity meant letting his soul enter the space where the deity resided, and his soul could return at any time. As soon as he began speaking, the deity expressed envy of Ryoma for maximizing the potential of the slimes, allowing him to live a modern life similar to that on Earth. Moreover, the cleaning slime and carrion slime he created were new species that had never existed in this world before. The white-bearded deity was very pleased because he was the creator of the slimes. Originally, he had only endowed the slimes with the ability to adapt to the environment and reproduce, but Ryoma gave them even more potential for evolution. This boy could control thousands of slimes simultaneously, yet the Beast Tamer Guild considered him a once-in-a-century novice because they judged beast tamers based on the strength and weakness of their familiars. As slimes were considered the lowest level of magical creatures, Ryoma was still regarded as the lowest level beast tamer, despite his ability to control 1,000 simultaneously. With no other choice, Ryoma had to register at the Adventurers Guild, where survival and combat skills were valued. However, upon arriving at the Adventurers Guild, the testers still did not think highly of Ryoma, a mere child. He could only prove himself through his abilities. The first test was archery, where each participant had only 5 arrows and had to hit the target with each arrow to pass. Ryoma hit the bullseye with the first 2 arrows, then promptly performed a triple shot, eliciting gasps from the audience. The second test involved shooting at moving targets, a test reportedly established by a mage who had invented a shotgun. This other world even had shotguns, and Ryoma heard that this person was a protagonist from another era who had brought guns into the magical world. Yet the moving target did not pose a problem for Ryoma. He still hit the bullseye with every arrow and even performed a 4-arrow simultaneous shot, stunning everyone. Just when people were shocked, an examiner suddenly attacked Ryoma from behind. Ryoma caught the dagger and reflexively counterattacked with magic, stopping just in time when he realized it was an examiner. The test ended there, revealing that the sneak attack was also part of the test. Archers should not relax their awareness of danger while attacking others. This time, the examiner was truly startled. Many could dodge a sneak attack, but to counterattack immediately was something he had never encountered before. Ryoma's strength was recognized by the examiner. The assessor is also a manager at the Adventurers Guild, a person who came with the entourage of a duke's family, which made him treat the situation with extra caution. Although Ryoma's abilities were exceptional, starting him at too high a rank could lead to criticism. The guild manager, aiming to protect Ryoma, assigned him the lowest level. After all, a capable person could quickly rise through the ranks by completing tasks. However, nobody expected that this powerful young man would voluntarily choose cleaning toilets as his first task. This was the most corporate slave-like behavior I had ever seen from Ryoma. Despite being favored by deities in this other world, he used his divine powers to become a janitor. Faced with a mountain of garbage, he first split a giant slime into 100 smaller ones. The trash was quickly devoured by them. After the last piece of garbage was consumed, a hole appeared in front of him. Ryoma cleaned the dump using water magic, then used earth magic to turn the soil into bricks, which the slimes used to plug the hole. With the dump site cleaned, his task was complete. Returning to the Adventurers Guild, Ryoma received a substantial reward for his excellent work. He was summoned to the office by a man, and the guild president then tasked him with cleaning all the city's toilets. Ryoma agreed without a second thought, but the job was not as simple as he expected. The public toilets, originally cleaned by the people from the slums, were left unattended for months due to a strike caused by embezzlement of their wages. The conditions inside were dreadfully filthy. Nevertheless, Ryoma took on the job and arrived at the public toilets, where the stench had already formed a visible fog. There were 30 toilets in total. Equipped with leather boots, gloves, a hazmat suit, and slime goggles, Ryoma was fully prepared. Upon opening the toilet door, the carrion slimes bravely surged forward, mercilessly devouring the waste. After they finished, Ryoma cleansed the toilets with water magic and thoughtfully disinfected them with lightning magic. After cleaning the first toilet, the nutrient-rich waste caused the slimes to split into 2. More slimes meant faster cleaning, but then a tense situation arose as their resistance to toxins significantly increased, indicating the presence of miasma, a deadly toxin to humans. Ryoma quickly reported back to the Adventurers Guild. The guild manager took the issue seriously and deployed a large number of adventurers to guard the area. Thus, an unusual scene unfolded. One person cleaning toilets while a group guarded him. After 1,000 carrion slimes merged, they transformed into the king of carrion slimes, possessing a skill that allowed it to rapidly devour waste, greatly accelerating Ryoma's cleaning speed. In just a few hours, the number of Ryoma's slimes grew to over 3,000, and with 3 kings of carrion slimes working simultaneously, they could instantly clean a toilet. Finally, by the next morning, Ryoma had completed all the cleaning tasks. The morning sunlight reminded him of his life back on Earth, where he was a corporate drone, often working overtime until morning. However, his mother, who dearly loved him, used to wake up early to welcome him home. Sadly, after her passing, no one was there to welcome him, and his home no longer felt like one. He thought the things he had lost would never return, but when he pushed open the door, everyone was there to welcome him back. He hadn't expected the Duke's family to rise so early to greet him, giving him instantly a sense of home. At that moment, he couldn't help but cry. This youth was a rare magic prodigy, possessing talents in all types of magic. No matter what the spell, he could master it with just one look. Yet, when it came time to fight, everyone wondered which magic he would use to defeat his opponent. But the boy drew a short sword and charged, nimbly dodging attacks, and swiftly dispatched the monster. Everyone's jaws dropped. "Are you sure you're a mage and not a warrior?" After defeating the roach monster, they discovered a metal slime in the mine tunnels, a very rare type of slime. Eliaria rushed forward first, using an ice wall to block the slime's escape, then pounced to embrace it. Such a precious slime. Ryoma urged her to quickly make a contract, but Eliaria gifted it to Ryoma instead, as her engagement present to him. After emerging, everyone reported their findings from within the mine, where monsters were running rampant. If not quickly eradicated, they would pose a threat to the town once they grew stronger. The Adventurers Guild took this seriously, immediately mobilizing all adventurers to prepare a concentrated attack on the abandoned mine. This time, Ryoma was given special treatment, placed in a group with a bevy of beauties: cat girls, rabbit girls, tiger girls, dog girls. Which do you like? The Adventurers Guild assembled its forces, ready to clear the monsters from the mines, but soon found they had walked into a goblin's trap, first showing weakness to lure the humans deep into the mine, then concentrating their forces for an ambush. It seems monsters these days are quite cunning, outsmarting the humans. Initially, their extermination mission went smoothly. Mia, relying on her keen senses, detected a large group of monsters ahead. Sure enough, the cave's ceiling was covered with a thick swarm of bat creatures. But for the adventurers, these bats were tough opponents. Ryoma solved the problem with just one spell, leaving a mountain of bat corpses inside. His teammates were speechless. To these bats, Ryoma was like a bug in the system. Such good food should not be wasted. Ryoma summoned a giant slime, letting it decompose into individual entities, then set it to devour the bat formation, continuously clearing the monster corpses. After feeding, the slime split into more entities. Next, they discovered a colony of 500 goblins. The adventurers rallied together, using the terrain to gradually reduce the goblin numbers. But it seemed the more they killed, the more there were. The adventurers also realized there might be more than 500 goblins. The adventurers were in danger. Ryoma could no longer hide his strength, ordering all adventurers to fall back. He summoned his slime legion and rushed forward, setting a sound barrier around his allies, then launched a sonic attack on the goblins. Instantly, the goblins lost their ability to fight. The slime legion surged forward. Those with abilities used them, those without used sticks to beat the goblins, crushing them into disarray. The adventurers followed to mop up. But just when victory seemed within reach, a goblin commander and many sharp-toothed goblins emerged from deeper within the cave. The real battle was about to begin. Ryoma issued the order, directing the Slime Legion to launch their final attack on the goblins. Following Ryoma's command, thousands of slimes transformed into a torrent, directly overwhelming the goblin commander. After the battle, everyone was covered in dirt and grime. Ryoma had the cleaning slimes crawl over everyone, scrubbing them clean, making them look as good as new. The goblin stains, which were originally thought to be permanent, had everyone considering throwing away their gear and buying new ones. However, Ryoma's intervention saved everyone the expense of new equipment. With such skills, one wondered why Ryoma was even an adventurer when he could start a highly profitable laundry business. After leaving the mine, they discovered that many adventurers were injured. Due to a shortage of medical personnel, Ryoma had the medical slimes assist outside. Because they treated people for so long, the medical slimes quickly mastered rapid healing, proving to be more efficient than specialized medical adventurers. The carrion slimes consumed the surrounding weeds, and the acid slimes cleaned up the building debris, instantly dissolving various waste materials with their corrosive acid. First, they designed the house structure, then transformed the soil on the ground into bricks. Not only did this provide building materials, but it also dug out the foundation for the basement simultaneously. Ryoma used magic to harden the foundation, achieving a result sturdier than concrete made from cement and gravel. The slimes built the load-bearing columns and sprayed a layer of mucus. In just one day, a building with 1 underground and 2 above-ground floors was completed. Ryoma decided to open a laundry shop here, having just proposed moving out from the Duke's house, which shocked everyone. However, Ryoma could no longer accept the Duke's generosity. Having been taken care of by others all along, he feared becoming dependent and unable to live independently. Despite feeling that an 11-year-old should still be pampered, Ryoma insisted on leaving, and the Duke's family did not stop him. However, business is an art, so it was best to seek advice from the experienced. Thus, Eliaria accompanied Ryoma to meet the merchant Serge. Seeing how clean the slimes washed the clothes, Serge was also amazed. Ryoma's skills meant that opening a laundry shop would be very profitable. On Serge's suggestion, Ryoma decided to register at the Merchants Guild first. The three went to the guild, where the president, an elderly lady, after witnessing the cleaning slime's capabilities, also agreed that Ryoma should open a laundry shop. She then selected a well-located piece of land to sell to Ryoma. The area was large, surrounded by residential areas and factories, and close to the Adventurers Guild, ensuring the laundry business would thrive. So, Ryoma established his laundry shop there. Feeling the need to report this significant event to the deities, Ryoma visited the divine space. However, today only Kufo was present, as Gain and Lulutia had gone to Earth. Lulutia had become enamored with Earth's desserts, turning into a true foodie, while Gain had become obsessed with an idol girl group, turning into a fervent fan. Kufo had previously visited Earth too, places like the Amazon rainforest, Sahara Desert, deep sea trenches, and even Atlantis. Ryoma was sweating. These were all bizarre places that even he, a native of Earth, had never visited. Before leaving, Kufo reminded Ryoma that his spirit was being influenced by his reduced size, causing his maturity to gradually revert to that of a child. Ryoma then realized why, despite being a 40-year-old man, he got along so well with children like Eliaria. An 11-year-old boy had opened a unique laundry shop. The cleaning slimes washed clothes while the iron slimes acted as irons, getting the clothes very clean. However, the employees he hired were skeptical about the viability of a shop run by slimes and an 11-year-old boy. A slime that could wash clothes was unheard of, let alone a shop led by such a young boy. To express his gratitude for everyone's support, Ryoma held a reception before the opening of his store. He invited everyone he knew, and they all promised to arrive on time. The banquet was filled with abundant food, and all the invited guests attended. When it came time for the speech, Ryoma blushed under everyone's gaze, reminding him of the morning meetings back on Earth when no one really listened to him. But in this other world, he was respected by everyone. Two of the employees also changed their views about Ryoma. Despite his young age, the boss was trusted by many influential figures, surely due to his exceptional qualities. The reception proved to be very worthwhile. After tasting Ryoma's offerings, everyone wanted to repay his kindness. They helped by posting notices in the Adventurers Guild, and some even took to the streets to promote his business. Ryoma thought his laundry shop would have no business on its first day, so he took an adventurer's job to pass the time. However, when he returned after completing the task, he found the shop nearly overwhelmed by customers. The business on the first day was unexpectedly booming. Ryoma quickly joined in to help, and the three of them stayed busy until evening. Ryoma felt guilty for having them work from dawn till dusk without any breaks, so he rushed to the Commerce Guild that night to hire new staff. The guild's chairwoman was very willing to help Ryoma and promised to find more people for him to choose from. After a day of hectic work, Ryoma was almost exhausted, finding it even more tiring than his numbing life on Earth, yet his spirits were lifted by the hard work. In this world, a large spherical metal entity, actually a metal slime, feeds on iron ore and has a very hard body. Ryoma was curious about its resistances beyond physical attacks. He brought it close to a cup of venom, but the metal slime showed no reaction, indicating it was immune to poison. When exposed to a sticky slime, it was still unfazed. However, upon encountering acid, the metal slime trembled, revealing its vulnerability to acid corrosion, just like ordinary metals. It seemed there were few things in this world that could counter it. Unfortunately, such a powerful slime was only used by Ryoma as an iron and a cleaner. The metal slime served as an electric iron, pressing clothes smoothly, and the cleaning slime worked like a rolling drum washing machine, washing very cleanly. Ryoma's laundry business continued to grow, necessitating the hiring of more staff. However, seeing that the boss was just a child made some people hesitant, and the prospect of working with slimes made even more people wary. After Ryoma finished introducing the job, many people left, leaving only a father and daughter who were special. They were former assassins who had washed their hands of their past life after fleeing to this country. Their assassin's instincts still sharp, they recognized that Ryoma was no ordinary person. Ryoma thought to himself how accurate their guess was. Initially, they thought their identities being exposed would prevent them from being employed, but Ryoma hired them anyway. People capable of being assassins were definitely skilled. They would serve as waitstaff normally and as bodyguards when danger arose, effectively doing the work of 4. After a day's trial, Ryoma found both were competent, so he summoned a healing slime to treat the man's injuries. It turned out that before coming to Ryoma, the man had worked in a mine where he was injured by a falling rock, forcing him to seek new employment. They were skeptical about the slime's healing abilities at first, but after the treatment, the man was amazed to find his leg pain gone. Afterward, both worked even harder. Ryoma took on the responsibility of cooking for everyone, but his main occupation was still as an adventurer, so he couldn't always help with cooking. Moreover, the laundry business was getting better, and the 4 people outside couldn't keep up. Ryoma had no choice but to continue increasing his staff. This time, not only did he recruit 3 new employees, but he also specifically hired a chef for everyone. Even with so much help, the queue of people coming to drop off their laundry still stretched out the door. Seeing how successful Ryoma's laundry business had become, the Duke's family was also very surprised, though they knew Ryoma was bound to succeed. But the scene greatly exceeded their expectations. This slime was crazily feasting on iron powder, as Ryoma wanted to try to create a metal slime using iron powder. However, he didn't know that metal slimes aren't evolved by eating iron powder, because the Merchant Association had ordered a large quantity of waterproof fabric from Ryoma. He planned to produce it in bulk in a secluded, abandoned mine. Eliaria also came here to practice the violin, allowing Ryoma to enjoy the music while working. Indeed, with Eliaria's musical support, both Ryoma and the slime's work efficiency greatly improved. First, he set up the frames and hung the white fabric, then let the sticky slime continuously spray its slime. All that was left to do was wait for the slime to dry, and the fresh waterproof fabric was ready. While waiting for the waterproof fabric to dry, Ryoma helped Eliaria make some stone dolls. Eliaria happily accepted them as tokens of their affection. Ryoma simply made a dozen more dolls, 1 for each member of the Duke's family. However, Eliaria said one was still missing, because there wasn't one of Ryoma himself. In her eyes, Ryoma was already family. As the laundry business continued to boom, even with 7 or 8 employees, they were still very busy. Fortunately, Ryoma didn't need to step in personally. He went to the abandoned mine to continue making waterproof fabric. Suddenly, a strange fluctuation came through. It was the slime that was continuously devouring iron powder. Upon approaching, he found that this evolved slime was much heavier than the ordinary metal slimes. After identification, it was discovered that it had evolved into a steel slime. It was only then Ryoma realized that slimes, if they only eat iron powder, would evolve into steel slimes. To create metal slimes, they need to ingest various types of metals simultaneously. Who is stronger, Ryoma or the king of scavenger slimes? Watch this. Ryoma leaped forward and threw a punch, but after hitting the slime, he himself was thrown back due to the size difference. Ryoma's physical attacks were basically ineffective against it. The slime also stretched out its thick tentacles to counterattack. Ryoma raised a rock wall to block it. The battle left Ryoma sweating profusely. It proved that without using magic, Ryoma really had no way to handle the king of slimes. When he got home, he found that today's revenue was 3 times higher than yesterday. The employees were all working hard, but Ryoma discovered a problem. He hadn't arranged for any days off for them. So he decided to set up rest days for them, and someone immediately cried on the spot. It turns out that in this world, workers fundamentally didn't have the concept of taking days off. Being paid on time here already made one a conscientious employer. Normally, everyone's wages were very low, and wage arrears were common practice. Girls who were unlucky could even be harassed by their superiors. Ryoma was so good to them, and everyone expressed that they would work hard to repay Ryoma. Everything Ryoma did was watched over by the gods. They were pleased with both his efforts and his kindness. Bringing Ryoma to this world was undoubtedly the right choice. One day, Eliaria found Ryoma and invited him to accompany her to contract a second familiar. Eliaria planned to contract a Rimuru bird as her familiar. Ryoma was also eager to try. He wanted to acquire a Rimuru bird for himself. This is the most twisted family I've ever seen. Even Ryoma, a reincarnated individual, said they were too much for him to handle. When Ryoma was reincarnated, he was under the care of 3 deities. He was endowed with talents in all types of magic, with a magical power far exceeding that of the natives of this world, up to 198,000. However, the magic power of the girl in front of him was 200,000, surpassing even Ryoma. Who would have thought that such a usually well-mannered and cute girl would have such a high talent? Ryoma exclaimed in admiration. Ryoma's compatibility with slimes was perfect. Thus he commanded an army of up to 4,000 slimes. These slimes could collectively defeat any nation in this world. Yet the woman in front of him could contract divine beasts like the Rhea wolves, giant creatures that were not only massive and resilient, but could also use ice magic. These creatures devoured slimes as if they were eating dumplings, utterly defeating Ryoma's slime army. And she owned 20 of these divine beasts, plus another 100 wolves of various types. Who would have thought that the normally gentle and elegant lady was so strong? Ryoma exclaimed she was too much to handle. But the most twisted was the old man, because the magical beast he contracted was a dragon. Who could imagine that this old man was a dragon rider, and he had more than a dozen dragon companions? Ryoma exclaimed that this was a level even crazier than his own. Luckily, Ryoma was a good kid. If he were naughty, doing some mischief in this world, probably no one else would need to take action. This family alone could take care of him. This is a type of bird that likes music because they can use various types of magic. Many people wanted to contract a few of these birds as familiars. However, the best way to contract such magical beasts was to play beautiful music to them in person. For this, Ryoma specially made a guitar in this other world, hoping to use the simplest method to contract a few birds. Just as he arrived by the river, he saw a boy who also wanted to contract a Rimuru bird. The boy had prepared a flute, apparently also choosing the musical route. But contracting a Rimuru was not as simple as imagined. The boy had just started playing when the little bird became impatient and started squawking and was scorned by the flock. Angered and embarrassed, the boy drew his sword, intending to force the issue. Then the little crows flying high above launched wind blade attacks. The boy was chased and ran away in a sorry state. Just when he was about to be injured by these little birds, at the critical moment, Ryoma used an earth wall to block the attack for him. However, after the wind blade attack failed, the Rimuru birds launched a sonic magic attack. This type of magic could directly attack a person's spirit. Seeing everyone around, including the girl, suffering in pain, Ryoma could only concentrate and search for the bird emitting the sonic magic. Soon, he locked onto a Rimuru bird with a distinctive color. A silence spell sealed its sonic attack. But because of this, Ryoma was remembered with resentment by this high-level magical beast. After driving away the flock of birds, the Duke's household began to aid the injured people. Everyone was curious. All were in pain, even many experienced adventurers fainted. So why was Ryoma the only one able to fight back? Originally blessed by the gods, Ryoma possessed a level of mental endurance far beyond that of ordinary people. Nevertheless, while he managed to fend off the attack of the Rimuru birds, he inadvertently drove the flock away. To continue trying to form a contract with the Rimuru birds, he could either wait for them to return or go directly to their nest, if only anyone knew where it was. Staying to wait raised the uncertainty of whether the birds, once driven away, would return that day. Ryoma and the Duke's family waited by the river for 3 days, but the Rimuru birds that flew away never returned. When Eliaria brought up the topic of parting, Ryoma broke out in a sweat. Talking to girls was not his strong suit. As the two discussed parting, the girl seemed somewhat melancholic. Eliaria also reminded Ryoma to write to her. Just as he was about to reply, a nearby guard suggested that this was a moment when a man should at least embrace. He even demonstrated using a large tree. This turned Eliaria's cheeks red. Just as Ryoma was overwhelmed with embarrassment, the flock of Rimuru birds finally returned. Each Rimuru bird landed on the river surface. Eliaria quickly took out her violin. determined to play the most beautiful music in the world and win the recognition of the Rimuru birds. As the sun set over the beautiful waves, Ryoma was captivated by the beautiful scene. Eliaria played her violin earnestly, and to the sound of the enchanting music, the Rimuru birds unconsciously swayed to the rhythm. A large flock of Rimuru birds flew in front of Eliaria, all willing to become her contracted spirits. Seeing this, Eliaria was overjoyed. She managed to contract with 9 Rimuru birds at once. With Eliaria's successful example before him, Ryoma then took out his guitar, a unique musical instrument from Earth that no one present recognized. Unlike the violin, which is played by bowing, the guitar is played by strumming. Though Ryoma was only 11 years old in this other world, in his past life, he had been a man who had struggled in society for over 30 years. His tone unconsciously carried a sense of vicissitude and longing for his homeland. Some people were moved to tears by listening to it. The Rimuru birds were also touched by the music, each emitting a cry in harmony. When Ryoma's music stopped, the flock that settled in front of him was even larger than Eliaria's, including a rare species capable of emitting soundwave magic. Because they were to part the next day, everyone specially left some time for the 2 children to be alone. Tomorrow, Ryoma would leave the town to live alone in an abandoned mine, while Eliaria was headed to the capital school for further studies. Eliaria shared her sorrows with him. Due to her status and magical talent, ordinary children were afraid to play with her, leaving her with few friends from a young age. Once, an older child who offered to teach her magic ended up almost frozen to death by accident, which led to him bearing a grudge and spreading bad words about her, making others even more fearful of her. Thus, someone like Ryoma, whose magical talent exceeded hers and who did not care about her status, became her only and most cherished friend. During their conversation, she gave Ryoma her favorite necklace, a birthday gift from her mother when she turned 10. Receiving such a precious gift, Ryoma bravely gave Eliaria 2 slimes in return, including a rare healing slime. Eliaria laughed immediately upon receiving this unique gift, as slimes were what he treasured most. As they were to part the next day, Eliaria, fearing that Ryoma would not write to her, sternly threatened him to remember their promise to meet again in 3 years. If he became too immersed in his work and forgot about it, she warned that she would use the magic she would train in those 3 years to wake him up, just as her mother once woke her father who had forgotten a similar promise. The man handed a piece of glass to the girl and asked her to break it. The girl took a deep breath, gathered all her strength in her hands, and struck the glass. However, despite being single for 30 years, her quick hand move didn't even create a single crack on it. She then tried using her ancestral powerful kick, but the glass remained unscathed. Finally, she resorted to using reinforcement magic. Her clenched fist glowed with a golden light as she smashed it fiercely against the glass, but it still didn't break. The girl had to admit that the hardness of this glass could be compared to that of products made in China. If such glass were sold, it would definitely become popular. Ryoma, however, insisted that such fine material should be used personally because the manufacturing process was very complicated. First, it required mucus slimes to spit out hardening mucus. Then water had to be removed from it using separation magic. This process of mixing and dehydrating was repeated several times to produce a single pane of glass. Even though Ryoma owned thousands of slimes, he couldn't mass-produce this glass. He went through all this trouble to make bulletproof glass mainly to increase the security of his laundry shop. As the business of the laundry shop improved, jealous individuals started causing trouble. Just today, 2 troublemakers were arrested. To prevent vandalism at night, Ryoma decided to reinforce the windows with this glass. After sorting out the windows, Ryoma stepped outside only to see a Rimuru bird flying towards him. It was a letter from Eliaria saying her family was doing well and encouraging Ryoma to keep up his efforts. Spurred by Eliaria's encouragement, Ryoma felt motivated. Seeing customers lining up outside the laundry shop, he decided to open another branch. The green spherical creature was actually a medicinal slime, capable of secreting various types of potions like fever, cold, anti-inflammatory medications, as well as trauma and Yunnan Bayao for stopping bleeding. Particularly, this penicillin had antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, and antiviral properties. If released into the market, it could advance the medical standards of this alternate world by 20 years. However, this powerful slime was created accidentally. One day, Ryoma accidentally broke a bottle of antidote. In a rush to grab a cloth, by the time he returned, the spilled potion was gone. Initially, he thought it had been cleaned up by a cleaning slime, but it turned out that a poison slime had mistakenly consumed it and evolved into a medicinal slime. Then, Ryoma fed the poison slime several bottles of antidote. If he could cultivate many medicinal slimes, he could mass-produce and sell various potions. Therefore, Ryoma went to a well-known merchant to buy bottles. Hearing that Ryoma was buying in bulk, the merchant recommended that Ryoma register as a pharmacist at the commercial guild to avoid middleman fees, making the bottles much cheaper. After registering at the commercial guild and having his potions evaluated, an elderly lady there became interested and suggested that she could buy all his medicines and resell them, which would save Ryoma a lot of effort. After handling these matters, Ryoma rushed back to the shop, concerned he might be late for work. Thinking about how hard his employees worked, Ryoma felt guilty about his potential tardiness. Upon arriving, Carl suggested that Ryoma should come in later in the future because, as the boss, showing up earlier than the employees made them feel awkward and left them with little to do, which was quite unnerving. Ryoma was sweating profusely as he listened. It turns out that being too diligent can also be a mistake. That day, the boy first broke someone's leg, then healed him, earning a large sum in medical fees. Today, he collected another big bag of gold coins, yet Ryoma looked helpless. He did this out of necessity because the business at the slime laundry was booming. Ryoma had earned the approval of the Beast Trainer Guild's president, so the opposition sought to undermine the president's prestige by targeting Ryoma. They first sent people to cause trouble in the shop in an attempt to tarnish the laundry's reputation. When that failed, they directly approached Ryoma. That night, as Ryoma was walking home, he noticed several people following him. At a crossroads, Ryoma turned to run, but there were already people blocking his path. Then, Ryoma continuously changed directions, but each time his pursuers accurately blocked his way. So, Ryoma teleported to a rooftop and summoned 2 Rimuru birds for help. First, he used poison needles to knock out 2 enemies. When he subdued the third person, that man looked confident of victory because his demon companion had already locked onto Ryoma. The ability to constantly pinpoint Ryoma's location was due to the demon in the sky directing them. Just as the demon was about to attack, it turned out that Ryoma was also prepared. A Rimuru bird was already waiting to counter the flying predator. Another Rimuru bird successfully brought the guard squad. Although they thwarted one attack, the mastermind did not give up and continued to send people to attack Ryoma. Always being on the defensive was not a solution, so an old lady gave Ryoma a tip. Every time he was attacked, he should break the attacker's leg, then heal them and charge them heavily. If they couldn't pay the medical fees, it didn't matter. He could send them to work off their debt in the mines. With this method, the attacks gradually decreased. Ryoma still didn't let down his guard and specifically hired guards to ensure his employees' safety. The more trouble the enemies caused, the better Ryoma wanted to live. Since they were afraid of him running the laundry well, he simply opened another branch. Ryoma found 3 magicians who liked slimes to train as branch managers. The old lady also helped find locations for the branches. Thus, with everyone's blessings, Ryoma left alone to quickly get the second store up and running. You've never seen slimes like these, experts in laundry and mopping, even skilled in carpentry and decorating. Moreover, his slimes could also build houses and produce potions. But let's not talk about that. Because the first slime laundry was successful, Ryoma came to a new city to open a branch. He was greeted by a fox tribe girl who couldn't believe that Ryoma, at only 11 years old, was already a boss. Other kids his age would still be in elementary school. This man was Miyabi's father. Although it was their first meeting, he took great care of Ryoma, personally accompanying him to the business guild to process various procedures. The impressive building housed 4 guilds: the Business Guild, the Artisan Guild, the Adventurers Guild, and the Dragon Cavalry Guild. Ryoma then realized that the area outside was filled with several giant dragons. The founder of the Dragon Cavalry Guild, the man's ancestor, not only came up with the idea of using dragons to transport goods, but also named the dragon's resting plaza airport. Ryoma immediately understood. The man must also be a reincarnated person, simply copying the name airport from Earth, which was quite lazy. Because he inherited some of his ancestors' habits, Pyoro treated Ryoma to an authentic Japanese meal. Having been in another world for so long, it was Ryoma's first time tasting miso soup, grilled fish, and rice. Heard that not only does Pyoro's household have miso, but they also have seasonings like vinegar and soy sauce. Ryoma was quite unsettled by this, as it meant he could often taste flavors from his hometown. Seeing Ryoma eat with a nostalgic expression on his face, Miyabi asked him where he had eaten this kind of food before. Ryoma, of course, didn't dare reveal that he was reincarnated, and had to lie that his grandmother used to make it for him. Actually, opening a branch store was just a side job for Ryoma. His main interest was still in being an adventurer. However, upon learning that he was only an E-rank adventurer, Pyoro became a bit troubled, because in the town nearby, there was an overpopulation of heavy boars, and low-level adventurers couldn't even leave the town, making it hard for them to find quests. Ryoma visited the Adventurers Guild, and as expected, he only received a task to gather herbs near the town. Although Miyabi and the others warned him not to engage with the heavy boars, Ryoma hoped to encounter this kind of monster, as his combat power did not match his adventurer level. He released hundreds of slimes and quickly gathered a massive amount of herbs. Suddenly, a shout was heard. A heavy boar was chasing two adventurers. It seemed that a battle with the heavy boar was inevitable. Having never seen such a powerful child, Ryoma shot 3 arrows at the boar chasing the adventurers. However, due to the boar's thick skin, the arrows were deflected. The two adventurers, showing their conscience, reminded Ryoma to flee as they passed by him. Unexpectedly, the boar, which seemed impervious to arrows, was blown away by 3 punches from Ryoma's bare hands. Although they wanted to thank Ryoma right then, they had to rush to aid their companion, who had been injured by the boar. After the 2 adventurers left, Ryoma summoned a blood slime to drain all the blood from the boar's body. In just a moment, the blood from the massive boar was completely drained. The adventurers he had saved also carried back their injured companion, who had been directly hit by the boar, breaking several bones and severely damaging internal organs. However, with the help of Ryoma and a healing slime, the woman was soon able to stand up. To express their gratitude, the 3 adventurers offered all their possessions as a reward, but Ryoma didn't want their money. He only asked them to carry the boar back to town and to testify that he had acted to save lives, not to deliberately kill the boar. Ryoma's concerns were not unfounded, as he was scolded as soon as he returned. Miyabi, unaware of his true strength, was very worried about his safety and scolded him. At that moment, the Adventurers Guild also sent someone over. To protect low-level adventurers, the guild did not allow adventurers to fight above their level. Fortunately, the 3 adventurers testified that Ryoma had acted to save lives, or else he would have been in trouble today. Ryoma sold the boar to Pyoro. However, when the employees processed the boar, they found no blood inside. When Pyoro learned that this was the work of the blood slime, he immediately wanted to buy it. It turns out that the cleaner the bloodletting, the better the quality of the meat. Despite Pyoro's persuasion, Ryoma did not want to part with his only blood slime. To apologize, Ryoma decided to cook a dish from his hometown himself. Ryoma's cooking skills from his previous life were quite good, and he handled the kitchen like a professional chef. Craftily, Pyoro recorded every step of the cooking process. After tasting the food, Miyabi was instantly impressed, and Ryoma himself was also quite satisfied with the flavor. Then the next day, Ryoma discovered that Pyoro was already selling the dish. Indeed, he is a great merchant, able to grasp even the slightest business opportunity. Ryoma had completed the framework for the laundry shop's branch. Just in time, Carla arrived with the newly recruited staff. With these people's help, all the preparations were completed in 3 days. Ryoma turned the sign to indicate the business was open, and the second laundry shop officially commenced operations. Pyoro and Miyabi were surely the first to patronize it. Unexpectedly, they also introduced many customers. Plus, all the staff had been trained at the first shop, so the operation of the second shop was very smooth. Everyone worked methodically. Seeing the long line of customers outside, Ryoma could leave with peace of mind. Early the next morning, everyone got up to see Ryoma off. Learning that Miyabi was also going to the capital to study this year, Ryoma specially asked her to look after Eliaria. Back in Kimmeltown, Serge showed Ryoma the magic-driven cars of the era. Although these cars were powered by magic, their appearance was very much like modern race cars. Even the components inside were modernized. Unfortunately, the people of this world hadn't developed many uses for the magic-driven cars, using them only for racing. Speaking of which, Serge pulled out a large box of magical tools. If combined, perhaps they could create something new that moved without magic. After consuming a piece of charcoal, the cleaning slime unexpectedly evolved a second time. Callum didn't understand these things and thought the slime was sick from eating the wrong thing, so he came to apologize to Ryoma, telling him that the slime had become lethargic after eating the charcoal and even refused to do laundry. Ryoma, trusting him as the manager, thought he had messed things up. Seeing Callum's guilty expression, Ryoma quickly reassured him not to worry because this was a sign of the slime's impending evolution. The cleaning slime, having evolved from an ordinary slime and evolved multiple times, was showing signs of evolution that even Ryoma had never seen before. So, he kept the slime with him to see what it would evolve into next. While waiting for the slime's evolution, Ryoma also told Eliaria about it, who was so surprised that she specifically wrote to instruct Ryoma to inform her of the outcome. Seeing that the evolution might take a long time, Ryoma decided to visit his hometown first. Upon learning that Ryoma's hometown was in the Siuslushi Great Tree Sea, Callum was shocked. That forest was equivalent to a human-restricted area, dense and inhabited by many magical beasts. No one expected Ryoma to have come from there. Ryoma went to the Adventurers Guild to pick up some quests that could quickly raise his level, as his current adventurer level was too low to take on many of the available quests. Just then, a new receptionist at the Adventurers Guild, a girl named Pina, with a somewhat introverted personality but super efficient at her job, immediately found him the most suitable task. It was a cross-city courier job that required tight timing, thus offering high level-up points upon completion. Seeing that the destination was Kairabon City, Ryoma's eyes lit up. Hearing that Kairabon City was about to host a magical tool fair, he took the opportunity to go and explore the magic civilization of this world. The recipient, a magical tool craftsman named Dinome, didn't expect anyone to deliver the goods so quickly. After signing for the delivery, he decided to invite Ryoma for tea. Ryoma took a sip and was surprised to find it tasted like coffee, realizing that this world also had coffee. After finishing his coffee, Ryoma was about to take his leave when he ran into Serge, who was visiting. It turned out that Dinome and Serge were good friends, so Ryoma was persuaded to stay a little longer. He was given a tour of Dinome's workshop, which housed several magical vehicles reminiscent of modern cars. One particular carriage seemed out of place. It was an ordinary horse-drawn carriage. Dinome had taken on even such mundane repair work to save up for his grandson's tuition fees. Dinome's grandson, only 4 years old, was already capable of crafting the core components of magical devices. To ensure his grandson's prodigious talents were not buried, Dinome was driven to earn as much as he could to send the boy to an academy in the capital. Upon parting, Dinome gifted Ryoma one of those magical components. With time on his hands, Ryoma used the component to create a music box. Listening to the beautiful music emanating from this small box, Serge spotted a business opportunity. He believed that with proper packaging, the box could greatly appeal to the nobility. Ryoma hadn't expected that something he made casually would be liked by others. Unfortunately, he was too busy to produce more music boxes, so Serge suggested outsourcing the work to Dinome, which could also help earn more tuition money for his grandson. A cleaning slime turned black after eating charcoal, leading to the discovery that it had evolved into a deodorizing slime with abilities to eliminate, reduce, and absorb odors. To produce more deodorizing slimes, Ryoma specially burned a batch of charcoal for them to consume. Over time, he managed to cultivate a large number of iron slimes, which were lively and enjoyed rolling around together. Realizing that iron slimes could be transformed into ironing tools to help in a laundry shop, Ryoma was inspired to shape them into cleavers. With a simple squeeze, the cleavers became sharp enough to cut through wood as easily as tofu, unveiling yet another use for the iron slimes. To test the specific effects of the deodorizing slimes, Ryoma had their deodorizing fluid tested by a friend. Soon after, Maya came to him because the deodorizing bag he had given her had stopped working. Her home was next to a garbage dump, and the area had been free of foul smells for a few days, thanks to Ryoma's deodorizing bag. Now that its effect had worn off, the odors were unbearable again. The deodorizing bag had absorbed enough odors to become ineffective. so Ryoma gave Mia 2 bags this time, hoping they would last longer. Mia asked Ryoma to produce more deodorizing bags for sale, as they could significantly improve the living conditions of her cat people tribe, who lived near garbage dumps. When a few children accidentally spilled garbage because their trailer was broken and they couldn't afford a new one, Ryoma, using the power of adhesive slime, repaired the trailer for them. The wooden planks glued together with the slime were incredibly sturdy. Despite being just children, 2 of them were already G-ranked adventurers from the slums, taking on garbage hauling jobs at a young age. Ryoma's sympathetic look unintentionally angered Beck. Even though they were hauling trash, they earned their money through strength and didn't need pity. Ryoma handed them a deodorizing bag to test its effectiveness. As soon as the bag was placed on the trailer, the stench of the garbage disappeared immediately. Ryoma asked them to help test how long the deodorizing bag would last before becoming ineffective. To thank Ryoma for his help, Beck decided to repay him with some snacks. Beck took Ryoma to clean the church, because there was a day every 2 months when helping them clean would earn free snacks. However, before Ryoma could start working, he was summoned to the realm of the gods. This was a deity Ryoma had never seen before, who proclaimed himself as the god of magic and knowledge, different from other gods Ryoma had met. This god of magic and knowledge didn't seem to like Ryoma initially and started to test him by asking questions. The surroundings, including the cabinets, kept changing, but Ryoma couldn't answer any questions in time. It turned out that the deity didn't actually need answers because he could understand Ryoma's thoughts by observing his reactions to the questions. After reading Ryoma's mind, the deity's attitude softened. It turns out that there had been many reincarnated individuals before Ryoma, some of whom were inherently evil and started misbehaving after gaining power, while others, although initially kind, gradually lost their way. Fortunately, Ryoma was still a good child, which finally brought a smile to the deity's face. Although Ryoma talked with the deity for a long time, it was only a moment on the outside. However, Beck was still displeased with Ryoma. He had kindly brought Ryoma to clean, but Ryoma was just daydreaming and slacking off. After having snacks, the children didn't leave because volunteers were coming to train them in combat. Learning some combat skills would allow them to join the Adventurers Guild, providing these slum children with a way out when they grew up. Beck advised Ryoma not just to stick to being a magician, but to learn some combat skills to easily become an adventurer. Unexpectedly, the person who came to teach the children was Worgen, the manager of the Adventurers Guild. Upon learning that Ryoma was already an E-ranked adventurer, Beck was stunned. Although they were all of similar age, the difference between them was immense. Although it was unclear why Ryoma was there, since he was present, Worgen decided to let him help train the children. Training these children was easy for Ryoma. The slimes did it for him. The slimes were very precise, able to train the children in combat skills without harming them. Worgen suddenly realized that Ryoma also had potential as a coach and wanted to make him responsible for training the children in the future. Worgen had seen Ryoma's archery before, and today was a good opportunity to test his swordsmanship. The two sparred back and forth, with Beck watching in amazement. After the activity, Ryoma sent the children home, and Worgen proposed again that Ryoma become an instructor. Although he is already very busy, he still wants to help others as much as he can. Since arriving in this world, he had been continuously cared for by others, so he decided to try out the job. A Rimmel bird brought a letter from Eliaria, saying she was working hard learning to make cakes and hoped to use them to make new friends at school. Of course, she most hoped that Ryoma could taste the cakes she made herself. Ryoma looked up at the sky, marveling at how wonderful this world truly was.